you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and thank you for the opportunity to speak in what is an extremely important debate today. And this debate is so important because it has very real impact on our constituents. And leaseholders have been crying out for reform on the model for years. But the government makes promises, but it's seemingly unwilling to act. Mr Deputy Speaker, it's simply not right that we have a system where people are denied the right to decide what the future of their own home looks like. Stuck with high service charges while faults and leaks fail to get fixed, and with a lack of transparency over what leaseholders are actually paying for. And it's a familiar story. As my honourable friend, the Shadow Secretary of State, the member for Wigan, has said, with the exception of England and Wales, every country in the world has repealed or reformed the archaic leasehold model. There is a cross-party consensus in this place that the current system simply doesn't work. So why is this government sitting on its hands while the people out there pay the price?
Will my friend give way?
I will.
Would my honourable friend agree with me that it's actually worse than that? They're sitting on their hands. They've actually raised expectations by some of the comments by the Secretary of State in particular has led people to think that things are going to change quickly when quite clearly they aren't.
I would, absolutely. And I think, you know, it's an outrage that these empty promises are giving people hope and yet they turn into nothing. And it is, yet again, another case of the government not matching the ambition of the British people. And I'm sorry to say, Mr Deputy Speaker, that the bad news just keeps on coming for leaseholders. As much as the Leasehold Reform Act made meaningful progress in all but abolishing ground rents for leaseholders of newly purchased new builds, reform for existing leaseholders has been kicked into the long grass. The UK housing market risks becoming a two-tier system for leasehold properties. There are 4.8 million existing leasehold properties, and unless reform comes quickly for those homeowners, new build lease properties will be seen by prospective buyers as more desirable, since they're not subject to the same ground rent charges, which may well benefit developers, but leaves existing leaseholders stuck with unsellable homes, and that impacts the entire market. An existing leaseholder unable to sell their leasehold property is unable to go on and buy another possibly freehold property. So the entire market is being impacted and stagnated. Mr Deputy Speaker, the government keeps promising that reform is just around the corner, as though if leaseholders just keep supporting the government at another general election, they really mean it this time and they've sorted the problem out. But the reality is they've had 13 years to clean up this feudal model of home ownership, and they show no signs of doing it soon. And this is people's lives we're talking about. There are real consequences that exist for people, and we cannot lose sight of that. As the government continues to tease reform, there are leaseholders out there who want to extend their leases but dare not, because they know there is no guarantee that the government will follow through on its promise of further reform. And every day that they delay acting, Mr Deputy Speaker, could cost leaseholders more when they do come to extend, and pushes them closer to that cliff edge of marriage value having to be paid in extending a lease. Mr Deputy Speaker, Britain is in the midst of a housing crisis. Private renting costs are out of control, the disastrous Tory mini-budget made it harder for millions to get a mortgage, and the leasehold model is clearly broken. Now, the government may have run out of ideas, but on these benches, we would not only reform the broken leasehold system, but tackle the supply side of the housing crisis, building new homes and making them more attainable for potential buyers. Whilst this government makes promises, Labour has a plan to deliver. And polling in recent months shows the public trust Labour with the economy more than the party opposite. And with this government's failure to act on leaseholds and Labour's plans to reform the system and support house building, the message is clear that it is Labour that is also the party of home ownership too. There was, and has been today, general consensus across the House about the need to tackle the feudal leasehold system and tackle the exploitative practices that it enables. So what's the hold-up? Why is the government all talk and no action? And will they please just get on with it?